of Creatives.
Hello and welcome to Cast of Creatives, the series dedicated
James.
to exploring creative work and the impact it has on mental health and well-being. So I'm delighted to be joined today by Samantha Jennings, who is a choreographer and Royal Academy of Dance teacher. Samantha, how are you doing?
Hey James, it's just fantastic to be on your show, and I love the fact that you're an advocate for mental health, so I think there'll be a bit of synergy there between us, definitely.
Absolutely,
Thank
you very much. Yeah, two of the things that really excite me about talking to you today really are, yes, the mental health aspect, but also I think our shared appreciation of love of a really good wedding first dance. So I want to crack into those subjects with you. But before we get started with those, can you just share with everybody a little bit of an overview about your career and how you got started in dance and what brought you to become a mental health student?
Okay, so just the nuts and bolts. My mum went to the Royal Ballet School, which is a fantastic start. So the first steps, I was brought up in the world of theatre and a dance school, obviously. Now, of course, I could have had two left feet, but that wasn't going to happen. So I absolutely loved it. And I went from strength to strength. I got an award to go to Stella Mann, as it was known, it's probably now called the Bedford College, School of Dancing in London. And then interestingly, it was as I was a teacher, and by the way, I quite wanted to be a dancer, but I was a teacher at the time. I was spotted by an examiner who said, "Why don't you go to Italy and teach some children at school in Europe?" So I said to my mum, "I think I'm off." And she said, "Golly, are you sure you want to go all the way to Italy and teach dancing?" And I did. So that really opened my mind to travel and creativity, and that was fantastic. So I think there's a long career, obviously, I've got, but I ran schools for many years, put children through their exams, did school shows, all this kind of thing. And then I came to wedding dance because a couple came to my dance school and said they'd like me to choreograph a first dance. That was in just as Strictly took off on our TV screens. Wow. And it was terrific because I was lucky. I was there sort of at the beginning. So I set up Bows and Bells. I sort of left the children's dance teaching and went fully into wedding dances, which I adored, because actually I'm the choreographer, dramatist kind of person, and less the teacher, if you will. Sure. So it suited me artistically, because really that's the kind of girl I am. And that was just immensely rewarding. And I won awards. Brides Magazine Rapid Awards for Special Touches in 2006. So that was really good. And then, of course, we sort of move on to these times. I actually went off with my husband to Portugal for 4 years and ran creative art holidays. So we're talking about Fantastic. Creativity here and mental health. So that we did. And that was probably the highlight of my life personally. Although I love my dancing, I'm absolutely passionate about it. That was also fantastic. And then we came back in the last 4 years, and there's been so much talk about mental health, and the RAD, it's so much at the top of their agenda that I couldn't help be pulled into that. So I went on a Silver Swans licensee course about a year ago. And, a bit more than that, about 2 years ago, actually. And I just started last January teaching the oldest adapted ballet, as it were, and the lockdown came in. So the last year I've been desperately trying to reinvent myself and see how I can offer that service online. So that's where we got to really here.
Amazing. So what would you say has driven this move towards a greater consideration for mental health within dance?
Well, I think that when you look at the media stories and you see all of those older people so isolated, so anxious on their own. I mean, we have seen it, haven't we, in the care homes, the terrible difficulties that they've had. It made me think about a demographic that probably gets quite ignored, which are the people in care homes. Right. You know, people can't go in and teach them. People can't, they can't see their loved ones. It must have been terribly isolating. So I did actually a little series online on YouTube called Ballet Bite Size, which kind of helped because it was free. But overall, I think going from 50 years up to 100 years, I think there's a big proportion of society that probably could have better accessibility to dance learning online. So that's that. Apart from which, I'm actually doing a fantastic course at Bucks University called it's an MSc in mental health and I can't even remember it, and I've done a year of it. Mental health and wellbeing in education.
Right.
So it kind of tied in really well with that. And the RADs kind of, and other organisations, it's not just them. This kind of, we did look at the body scientifically a lot, and the dance medicine. I think we're now looking at the cognitive side of it all. Very much
really,
so.
Really, really interesting to me personally, because my grandfather, now coming up to his 104th birthday, is in a care home, and his experience during lockdown was nothing short of absolutely shocking, really. He said that basically all the planned activities just dried up, and they became more or less prisoners inside their cells, he referred to them. It was a very, very kind of sad situation. And if it weren't for technology, really, things like FaceTime, I think it would have been even worse.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry to hear that, James. And I do really think that, we're not really very well set up digitally. I think that's another area we need to progress forward. Teaching a lot online, you've got a fantastic kind of video conferencing kind of setup here, but Zoom with the old music going and everybody dancing a bit out of time. I think there's a long way we could go.
Yeah, there are challenges there. So it's interesting that you're beginning to explore that territory. I think that's fascinating.
It is. It's almost like sort of wanting to be in the next century or something, and having 5 or 6G working so that we can all kind of dance together in time to the music, because really seriously we're not. And on Zoom there's a lot of distortion, which I think hinders the mental health and well-being of people learning, because really it should be such a great unique experience to dance to music. I think dance has to be looked at as something set apart from exercise. It's a different ball game.
It's more of a discipline, would you say?
It certainly is, but I also think that the choice of music that you play to either flow with those movements, or they're fast or slow, and the music that you use is a very emotional adaptation. And I think that when it's done properly and the teacher knows how to differentiate and use really great music, that's when it all really comes together and you have a great kind of thing. If you look at the choreography on Strictly, for example, I'm just using that as an example, you can see how well the steps flow together with the gorgeous music. It's quite an emotional kind of feeling for everybody.
Amazing. I know that within the counselling space specifically, there's been a massive learning curve to take counselling services online, and I think it rocked all of the governing bodies as they scrambled to catch up with what this all meant, and the ethics of providing things like the mental health services digitally instead of in person. It turned the whole thing on its head. And how good is the education at the moment in the dance space for this kind of movement? Is the RAD quite supportive of it?
Well, it's fascinating you asked me, and I can really give you a really good answer here. Terry Hyde has created an app online for dancers for the RAD. I happen to have talked to him once about mental health, because I'm into psychology and he's into psychotherapy. So we had to sort that bit out. And I think he told me probably that I'm doing the wrong thing. But anyway, whether or not I am or not anyway. But the point is, let me just express the fact that he's got an app going, Terry has, on the RAD site that everybody knows about, that the dancers can access for their mental health and well-being. So it's really worth having a look around. Of course, I know about Headspace, for example. I think most of us are aware of that. My husband uses that in his work in telecoms sometimes, but we both actually feel going for a good walk and being mindful in that way, it's probably quite good for you physically, mentally, and everything. So, I mean, the jury's kind of a bit out for me on whether those kind of apps work, but they're incredibly popular on my course. There's a lot of mindfulness modules and things. Yeah.
I mean, I imagine, such as like when you're explaining that one of the biggest challenges of being online and trying to do dance is the synchronization of the whole thing. There probably are ways of having better speaker setups and integrating a delay to cope with that kind of situation. But we're not quite there yet, are we, in terms of that level of sophistication? But we will get there, and then it will be an option. So you're at the very forefront of it, really.
Well, I'd like to be. I'm almost trying to think of, setting up some kind of funding to try and find the right person to set this up in the UK. I'm currently with a company called MoveU. For everybody out there, that's MU. I have to remember how to spell this. It's MUVYU. It's probably very American. Anyway, it's fantastic because when I'm teaching online, I don't know how it works, honestly, James, but I'm in sync with my dancers and there's no distortion of music, and it goes right into their computer, and boy, you can hear it real well. So I had a look real well. I'm now beginning to sound American.
You're getting into the spirit of the thing.
And so at the end of the day, the spirit of the thing. And of course, my husband's told me that 5G will make a lot of difference because he's a capacity engineer for a big well-known telecoms company in this country. So at the end of the day, I guess that if we get 5G, that actually may solve some problems for us, James. Maybe, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're ever moving towards a more stable environment. And with 5G, I walk into town and the internet speed on my phone is faster than my home broadband. So yeah, we're definitely moving in the right kind of direction for all of that stuff, and it's going to be a game changer for sure. It just enables people to have access to things that previously weren't possible, and I'm all for that.
Well, absolutely, and I think certainly with dance, which is very kinesthetic, is actually been a real challenge for all those dance teachers out there. I mean, I can say this because I sit and chat to them online in the Silver Swan Sanctuary, this kind of safe place that we all go and talk and support each other, which goes back to the mental health again. And we all kind of go, oh, when are we going to go back to face? Because this is just too hard, I think the teachers I really feel sorry for are the wonderful teachers out there, dance teachers, who are teaching the kids in this country. Because quite honestly, teaching a group of 3-year-olds to dance online when they're really not easy. Wow.
Basically.
So my heart goes out to them. My heart does,
Amazing. So yeah, moving just briefly into the wedding space then, because obviously you have a lot of amazing experience teaching first dance choreography. And the question arose for Rachel and I at our wedding, should we have a first dance? And the answer was obviously. And should we have it choreographed? And the answer was obviously, because having come from a background of filming weddings for over 10 years, we saw that the couples that put the effort in to learn a dance were just in a totally different headspace to the people that didn't. And couples would come in and I'd say, are you having a first dance? And they would say sometimes, well, we're not very good dancers, so we'll probably just get up and do something. And the impact of that on the day was the pressure. Like, it was ironic because learning a fully choreographed routine is a lot of pressure, right?
It is indeed.
But the pressure of not learning something is even greater. So I would say that in terms of like actual on the day wedding mental health for couples, a choreographed dance is the way to go because it takes the pressure off. Do you have like a similar experience with your couples? Is that sort of how it played
Yeah, I
out?
was just going to ask how you got on. I mean, one of the questions as you were just expressing all of that was how many lessons did you have to sort of crack it?
Right, we got very lucky. There was a brand new dance studio opened up in the village, and we sort of befriended the dance teacher at the time who'd never done a first dance. We were sort of her guinea pigs, if you like. But she's very, very good. And she took us, Rachel's probably a better dancer than I. I am probably one of the worst, most wooden dancers in the land, and she had to take me from zero to hero, and I think she did it. We really enjoyed our first dance. I don't think it was amazing, like visually, but the fact that we did it and the fact that we put our hearts into it made such a difference to the guests and their joy and their pleasure, and that's where it all was, and that's what it was about. So we probably had 20 odd lessons. Quite a lot.
Okay.
Quite a lot.
I was going to say, did you find that you were able to lead, James? Because that's the key, really.
Catherine was very good about it in the sense that she determined like the different points at which we could both lead, and so it was a joint effort. There were a couple of times I had to catch Rachel. It was very scary, but we had it practiced and down to a T. So yeah, the interesting thing was the most interesting thing that came out of the whole experience really was we'd learnt in one particular environment, and Catherine did keep saying, as soon as you get your dress on and as soon as you're there on the day, there are so many factors that can influence even the minutest of details. And what happened is, during the practice that we had just before, thankfully there was no one in the room, Rachel got onto the dance floor, did the first move, and went flying across the dance floor. No. Because she just totally lost. It was too slippy. So we had to scale it back. We had to scale it all back just to be safe and not fall over. But I mean, yeah. So how did you find this? We tried.
I'm impressed with what you said. I think the fact that you had a lift or some kind of lean and support or some kind of lift in it, I'm really, really impressed with that. And I think they always look good, especially as a flourish at the end. To have a wedding couple who only realised at the last minute that I just quietly said, what will you be wearing to the bride? And it turned out it's going to be a fishtail dress. So basically, that's a shape.
All bets are off.
It goes, you might as well be a Japanese lady walking like
this. That's it.
So there have been some few laughs along the way, and just for drama, really. I did have a client once who I don't think I've ever known it in all the thousands of years I've been teaching, because I don't want to make myself sound too old, but he had no rhythm whatsoever. So the beat that he heard coming through the music, he wasn't able to put his feet in time to that. And that was it was almost like a kind of disorder that I hadn't quite seen ever before. So that was a lot of lessons. But generally, I would say top tips to prepare: make sure that you wear good shoes when you're training, choose a lovely song. I think don't make it longer than 2 minutes, because most music tracks are about 4 or 5 minutes, and frankly, that's far too long.
It's a lot to learn.
It's a lot to learn. About 2 minutes I used to do. We used to get a 2-minute dance choreographed in 3 1.5-hour lessons. So, that wasn't bad, and all the practice that they did in between. But I can appreciate that it could probably take longer if the teacher's perhaps a bit less experienced, or you want it to be really, really good, that you're going to just kind of wow everybody, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, I think you did a fabulous job. I think the fact that you went for it, and you were able to have a lift, a lift in it, and it was, it must have blown everybody's socks off at the wedding, and it's always quite a tearful moment, I think, for those watching.
Yeah, our guests were very into it. We were very, very glad that we did it. I think if we hadn't have done it, we would have regretted it.
I think so. And I mean, at the end of the day, they weren't crying because you got it wrong, but they were crying because
they didn't
were
see that bit. That was in the deleted scenes, yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
in a broader perspective then, how would you say, in your experience, which is very varied and very vast, how does dance help with mental health?
How does dance help with mental health? Well, I could sort of tell you about all the globins and pheromones and hormones that we release. Endorphin. I'm actually on holiday at the moment, so I've lost my academic brain for about 6 weeks.
Right,
But
dialed it out. That's good.
overall, let's just start with the hormones that flood in when we start dancing. They're basically happy hormones. So as soon as we start dancing, they're flooding into our brain. So we're going to feel good after we've done it. Basically, even if we went for a walk or a cycle, it would have the same effect. But that's the kind of thing. So obviously, mentally, it's great for you. Physically, it's very good for you because obviously, you're going to be a fitter person. You're doing your exercise. It's very engaging. I think one of the things that's come out for older learners is the actual social aspect of dancing together in a community, which saves the isolation and depression and anxiety of living on your own when perhaps you've lost a partner. And therefore, that social connection that comes in through dance is really key for mental health, I think.
Yeah, that's three big ones. It's very interesting about the science and the endorphins. And we're both students of mental health, and I was reading an
Right.
article. I got really into it. Actually, it was super science, and it was all about the different kind of waves that music emits. So they beta waves and theta waves, and how these hit your brain and the different areas of the brain that they activate. And it was fascinating to learn how different basically oscillations, which are essentially beats, like oscillations become beats, beats become oscillations, they're the same thing. And when music kind of oscillates at different frequencies, it triggers different parts of your brain. And I was kind of fascinated at how the body adapts to just desperately want to move with those oscillations. It's like a sync, it's like a physical DNA syncing thing. And I was amazed. That's why people tap their feet and nod their head. They just can't help it because it's triggering something in their brain. And and like you say, it's all the feel-good emotions and stuff. Dance is a powerful tool.
Oh, it is indeed, James. I love what you've just said there. I'm actually very interested in what you say about music, and I'll probably carry that forward to next year. Thanks for some research tips on that.
Yeah, happy reading.
I believe there is something powerful in music. I was talking to a colleague the other day. I mean, it's so powerful. When I've done feedback to my students, I said, what do you really like about the lesson? They go, well, Samantha, your dance choreography, and it's not just exercise. So I go, okay. And they go, and the music. So, so many have come back with that. So I think you really are onto something there. Absolutely, with the music. But I think they talk about the rhythm of moving, rather like rocking a baby to sleep. One researcher I was reading last year, which is a very soothing. I mean, we're just talking about the slow movement here, but it goes right back to the cradle when we're being lifted up and perhaps rocked in the arm. I thought that was gorgeous and lovely when I read this. But I don't think well, I'd like to think that more people thought dance and ballet was fantastic, because I think it is. And now ballet can be adapted so anybody can do it, particularly men, who we find is another research area. They're not so keen to dance always, not as much as the women. So it would be great in the industry to start seeing men coming to dance more. And, maybe there's something about dance that they're not sure about. I'm not sure if it's that they don't want to look bad when they're dancing. I don't know. What do you think, James?
Yeah, it's hard to clarify, really. I think it's sort of horses for courses. As I say, I mean, I've never been a big dancer, but I appreciate aspects of it. The energy of a disco floor at a wedding. That shared spirit of community, and I can be there and present in that moment. I don't very much like being the center of dance attention, so that's there's a difference there.
You don't want to be John Travolta staying alive then in the middle of the floor.
Not
Nothing
yet.
like
I'll leave that to my dad, who's very, very good at it. Yeah, that's open to interpretation, that one.
Oh, okay. Well, going back to your dad, I'd love to help out there. Definitely would do, yes, because I'm kind of trying to trial this older learners dance. But definitely. Well, good luck with his dancing. You should encourage him if he likes it.
Yeah, I just want to linger a little bit more because you said something in this space, because you said something really interesting about the idea of being cradled as a child and that sort of evoking memories in somebody. I think I'm a very, very big believer in the fact that we are still programmed as tribal creatures, and I think like the experiences that we had thousands of years ago are still echoing today. And I love that analogy of, like, you know, being cradled as a baby and gently rocked and swaying.
Yeah.
I think music through the ages, in certain tribes, dance and music and the ability to dance would have been very, very closely linked to your ability to score a mate, and to further the tribe. And so if you were a good dancer, you were in. So there's so many sort of countless examples of where dance is integrated into our very beings, and I think that is potentially why it resonates so well with mental health.
Absolutely. I mean, it's always been a courting activity, and at the end of the day, you've got the African dancers who are very spiritual. You could almost talk about kind of a Holy Spirit that comes from them when they're dancing, another spiritual kind of dimension. It's just so fantastic. You've got ballet, which is a very disciplined dance, right through to others that are more relaxed. You've got the street kind of dance where guys off the street are all in community working together and having a competition to see who's the best dancer and everything. But I'm not too sure about the connection to danceability, because at the end of the day, I don't think that. I think it's something that's perceived, because I know it's going to sound really odd here. I'm going to say I know very virile people who aren't good dancers, but that would be a bit fruity. So I'm just going to say that obviously the best dancers aren't always, and vice versa. So basically what I'm trying to say is you can still be very virile as a guy. You may not be a very good dancer, or the other way around, I think.
I am living proof. So that's amazing. I mean, we're fast approaching the top of our little half an hour, and I really wanted to just, before we run out of time, Samantha, I just really wanted to check in and see if there's anything that you've learnt recently from studying mental health that you can share with anybody that's particularly interesting or tickled you a little bit.
Okay, well, thank you for a fabulous interview, because actually, instead of stumbling over all my words and not knowing what to say, I'm absolutely delighted I've been able to answer everything without doing a lot of ums in this interview. So, I just did one then, but I can absolutely. I have kind of fallen in love with Martin Seligman, positive psychology. His book is, of course, Flourish. Not all of it, because how can I put this? I'm quite a spiritual person, and I find that a lot of that doesn't necessarily come into positive psychology thinking, but a lot of good stuff does come out of it. And it's a framework that Martin Seligman talked about called Perma, and that's PERMA, and that's P for positive emotion, E for engagement, R for relationship, M for meaning, and A for accomplishment. And frankly, he tried this framework on a grammar school in Australia, and it changed the whole ethos of the school and the way the curriculum is run for the kids, all the way up through to the teachers. They had this Perma over the top. And to be honest, I'm trying it with my Silver Swans, where we engage in positive emotion, which means we're always positive, that the engagement is with each other. the engagement, is within the dance, which is something that we all enjoy. The relationship is the community of being all together. The meaning is what dance means to us and what we're trying to achieve, and the accomplishment. And I think, quite frankly, that framework is perhaps even in schools today, across the range, primary, secondary, dance schools, everywhere, in industry, as leaders that we are, we can make a big difference as self-employed creative practitioners, leading people forward with that kind of Perma framework. So that's what I believe in.
That is fascinating. So I think, that each one of those headings you could really, really dig in there and go deep.
Yeah, I think so. And I think I was probably told that on my last essay. There was like, yes, Samantha, perfect, we love this, but you're going to have to dig a bit deeper on this one, because it's huge and it's such a beautiful subject. I think you could probably spend a whole dissertation just on Perma, but I thought there was actually, when I did the research on that paper and I looked to see who was doing the Perma framework of Martin Seligman, the god of positive psychology, obviously American, or not obviously, but he is, I thought, there's nothing in dance about positive psychology or how we should lead as leaders, and absolutely nothing at all. And there was one chap in I think it was Taiwan, I can't quite remember, that I found this research and it was in Taiwanese and I had to just translate it all into English.
Oh, wow.
And I was desperate to read it, and he was running a dance school using Perma. So I did put that into my essay, but I had to actually translate it because there was nothing like it, here.
Wow, that's fantastic. Perma. So, I shall be looking this up and researching in great detail.
Yeah, Martin Seligman, father of positive psychology. That's what they're teaching in the mental health, is the big positive psychology and contemporary based interventions for that kind of thing. But it's great, and merging this all with the dance that I do is fascinating and opening up a whole way. But basically, James, what it's taught me is I've got to change before I can hope that other people change. I've got to change myself, and throw out the judgment and the, some of the things that come in. And so, mental health, start it right at the top.
Yep, I've just finished listening to an audiobook actually called Non-Violent Communication, and it was very much about checking your internal dialogue when dealing with other people and making sure that you are continually, reframing your relationship with that other person by asking the right questions and not saying the wrong things and not judging them and not predetermining who they are and what they mean. And it's always a fascinating subject. But I'm very excited to look into Perma, so thank you very much for that. That's a bit of a gift. I'll enjoy that. Samantha, it's been wonderful chatting to you. I know that we could chat for ages. I think there are 1,000 subjects that we could dig into, but sadly we don't have time today. But perhaps on a future episode we might get back in touch and have another go, because I think there's lots of ground here that we haven't covered. I'd be very excited to get into it. I think so.
I'd love to, James. It's been fascinating talking to you. We could probably talk all day if we were left alone somewhere and just chat on about mental health.
Probably, definitely.
Really... So very best wishes with what you're doing. And by the way, I think it's fantastic that you're advocating this in this industry. I'm very pleased that it's not that we can, that you're being an activist about it and an advocate. That's brilliant.
Thank you very much. And likewise, I think we share so much synergy and we're in such a similar position. I can't wait to, continue our journey together actually and see where we go. I'm very excited about it.
Oh, well, I'd be very happy to.
Excellent. Well, Samantha, thanks again. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Bye for now. Bye.